Hi, this is Sommer. Today I was just reflecting on the pandemic and everything that happened with that. It made me think about how thankful I am that Disney Plus got released before the pandemic, or maybe around the same time, but within a few months. I do feel like it came out before the pandemic, but it was like really close. I'm just glad that a lot of older Disney stuff was available to me in a subscription platform while there was so much chaos going on in the world. And I wanted to talk about my pandemic rewatches. Not all of these are going to be Disney, but I feel like most of these are probably going to be Disney. Surprisingly enough, I didn't really find myself watching a ton of old YouTube videos. I feel like that's mostly because I didn't really get into watching YouTube until like 2012, and during the pandemic, I wanted to go back a little bit further even, and I was just really invested in Disney and Disney Channel for a very long time, so that's what I found myself going back to during the pandemic. I do remember I did watch a little bit of Zoella's old vlogs during this time, but I will say that I wasn't a huge Zoella watcher in the first place, so these were pretty new to me. I was just bored and in the mood to be nostalgic. First, I did want to disappoint a certain demographic of people and say that no, I don't recall rewatching any Disney princess movies. Although I do definitely remember enjoying them when I was little, there wasn't one specific princess that was my favorite. My favorite classic animated Disney movies were Peter Pan and Lilo and Stitch. Although I don't really remember even watching those during the pandemic, I do think that there was a live action Peter Pan, like another version, that was released on Disney Plus probably during the pandemic. If not, it would have been 2021. To be honest, I never watched it because I would have rather watched it in theaters. Like, I would have bought a theater ticket to watch it, and I was disappointed that they just released it on Disney Plus. So I feel like as an act of protest, I just never watched it, and to this day have not. I remember really looking forward to Harry Potter weekends on any movie channel because my parents still have cable, and honestly, I didn't have cable when I was in college, and I didn't really miss it, but it is something nice to have when you have a lot of time on your hands, like during the pandemic. I also really enjoyed watching The Hunger Games and Fantastic Beasts whenever those were available on movie channels, but I've never been one to just watch a movie channel with random movies. I'm actually a little bit picky about my movies. I hate horror movies, and I'm always paranoid that, like, especially the Sci-Fi Channel is gonna play something and I'm gonna see some graphic things that I don't want to see, especially since I am a highly sensitive person. There's just some things that are hard to get out of my head, and I'd rather not go there mentally. Now that we've gotten a lot of non-Disney stuff out of the way, I guess I'll talk more about my pandemic rewatches. Some of these are just annual rewatches for me. Like, I have to watch them at least once a year. They're my staples when I'm bored. First is Beastly. Although technically I don't think that Beastly is on Disney Plus. I don't think that they own the copyright to it. I get it on Prime whenever I watch it. It is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, kind of. I feel like it was actually surprisingly not super popular when it was in the box office, even though it had Vanessa Hudgens in it. The main guy actor's name is not coming into my brain, but he was pretty popular, I believe, especially in the 2010s. Despite that, I feel like it was a slower paced movie, and because it wasn't action-packed, a lot of people didn't actually see it in the box office, so a lot of people might not have ever seen Beastly, which I would really recommend watching it. Even though it is not nearly as action-packed as Beauty and the Beast, as the live-action official movie is, it's still worth a watch. I watch it every year, and I actually don't watch the live-action Beauty and the Beast every year. I actually think that the last time that I watched that was probably during the pandemic. Aquamarine is another huge one. Okay, I said we were going to talk about Disney movies. Aquamarine is also technically not a Disney movie. I was obsessed with Aquamarine and H2O growing up, so these were two of my pandemic staples. I probably watched them at least several times each. The pandemic and just the general lack of things going on and the surplus of cancellations at the time even made season 3 of H2O seem like it was a good idea to rewatch. And I'm not bashing Bella here. I think that people need to calm down. She is not the reason why most people don't like season 3. Sophie is the reason why most people don't like season 3 of H2O. Anyway, I feel like I could go on a longer rant about that in a different video, justify my explanation, and go further into detail about that, but, you know, when everything is pretty dull everywhere else, looking back on semi-okay seasons of TV shows seems like a good idea. Something that didn't hit the same when I rewatched it was the 13th year. That kind of surprised me because I'm typically the kind of person, like, mermaids are my favorite mythological creatures, so I typically love anything related to mermaids or mermen, except for post-season 1 of Mako Mermaids, but again, that's a completely different rant. I did watch the 13th year, and it just was not the same as it was when I was younger. I can't explain why. I actually don't remember watching all of the High School Musical movies over again during the pandemic, which is slightly surprising, but I know that I at least watched one of them. I think it was the first one. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know why it wouldn't have been the first one. I did not watch High School Musical, the series, because I had not watched it for the first time in 2020, and I was kind of late to the party when it came to that show. I was so afraid that it was going to be disappointing compared to the original movie franchise that I was very skeptical, and I didn't want to watch it until Olivia Rodrigo really blew up, and then I got curious about it. Obviously, I rewatched Stuck in the Suburbs, Pixel Perfect, and the Lizzie McGuire movie. Actually, I think that the Lizzie McGuire movie was, like, really the first one that I turned to when I started to get anxious about the pandemic and everything that was happening in 2020. 2020 was just not a great time in my life, especially not to have a pandemic because I actually graduated from college in 2020. And I feel like the implications of graduating from college during the pandemic are ongoing in my life. Obviously, I've rewatched Kim Possible and Lizzie McGuire because, to me at least, those were the peak shows in Y2K on Disney Channel. I did watch a little bit of That's So Raven again. I actually didn't watch any Pixar movies during the pandemic, or at least in 2020. At least not that I can remember. I actually kind of caught up on a couple of newer Pixar movies, like post my childhood, post 2013, when I was sick with COVID in 2022. But actually, during the pandemic, I didn't watch any Pixar movies. If you notice all the cuts in this video, I mean, it's kind of normal for me. It's just like the way that I make videos. I feel like I need some time to think in between segments. It's actually really common. But A, I haven't actually taken any notes, and B, I don't know how to access my watch history on Disney Plus, especially from 2020. I know the DCOM movie that for sure I did not watch in 2020 was Smart House. And that is because it slightly freaked me out as a child. And I remember watching it like 5 too many times because it was never my favorite movie. But they just kept replaying it on Disney. So I know that I did not rewatch that movie during the pandemic. I went on a huge Descendants kick during the pandemic. I think that I watched Descendants for the first time in 2019. I feel like I was a little late to discovering Descendants, but then when the pandemic happened, it just kind of reinforced my fascination with retelling fairy tales. Honestly, Descendants reminds me of Once Upon a Time in a way, but somehow I like Descendants a little bit better than I liked Once Upon a Time. If you haven't watched Once Upon a Time, that would be something great to binge watch, by the way. I was really into rewatching the first episode of a lot of Disney Channel shows. So like I remember I watched the first episode of Even Stevens, the first episode of Jonas. It could go on and on. I literally chose a show that was on when I was a child, and I watched the first episode, and based on the first episode, I would consider watching more. I did watch all of Jonas again, and it made me want to rewatch Big Time Rush, but at the time, I didn't have Paramount Plus, so there was really no way to watch Big Time Rush. I did rewatch Zoe 101 on some platform, probably Netflix. Honestly, growing up, I was just a Disney Channel kid, so I don't really have a whole lot of memories of watching Nickelodeon except for H2O because I loved H2O. I really wish that I could access my watch history from that time on Disney Plus, but I don't know how. So I think that that's it for this video. I wish I was more prepared, but I just wanted to talk off the cuff and talk about things that I know for a fact I rewatched. Okay, actually that's a lie. I just remember rewatching a lot of Hannah Montana during the pandemic, and I don't know why that didn't come into my mind. I did watch like a select few episodes of Wizards of Waverly Place, but I don't remember rewatching it in order. I think that I skipped the first season for some reason. I don't know why, but I definitely remember watching like the iconic episodes. Anyway, that's it for this video. Stay beautiful.